We are going to go ahead and get started with our next keynote address. Again, I invite everyone to read through the bios here to learn all about their accolades and special accomplishments of the our two panelists who will be here just now. We have with us here Glenn Hammer, who is the president and CEO of the Texas Association of Business, that we're absolutely thrilled to have and share a little bit more of that Texas perspective and why Texas is so important for Mexico. And we have moderating Dr. James Hollifield, the acting director of the SMU Mission Foods Texas Mexico Center. So I will now turn the time to them, but if everyone could give them a round of applause, thank you very much.
Thank you, Courtney, and it's an honor to be here. I want to thank Mission Foods for supporting this incredibly important effort. And Pia, I'll just say the Dallas Fed, and I have to just let you know, I'm just a Jewish guy from the Bronx who has a bad sense of direction. So I wound up in Arizona and then eventually Texas instead of Florida. But the Dallas Fed to me has always been the gold standard, and Pia's research and her articles are material I always use, and I'll probably use some of them in my comments. And if I don't attribute them to you, I apologize. But what triggered me to also say your name is you mentioned tariffs. We haven't really spent all the presentations up to this point have been excellent and really have explained why the relationship is so important and the security aspect as well. And I want to commend the deans of SMU for your vision and your leadership. And Willie, your comments about the importance of the Dallas-Fort Worth area and the connection to the success of the region economically to the trading relationship with Mexico is very, very important. So I run the State Chamber of Commerce, and in addition to our 1,200 members, we have about 250 chambers and economic development corporations across the state of Texas that we represent. And they represent tens of thousands of businesses. And all told, we've got about 13.5 million, we're over 15 million workers in the state of Texas. And what I could say unequivocally is one of the unifying themes when I go around the state of Texas and I talk to chambers and groups is universal support for what President Trump had called, and he negotiated it during his first term, the best trade deal ever, USMCA, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, TEMEC. Wherever I go in the state of Texas, this is seen as a reason why Texas has had the strongest economy in the country for a number of years. A few points to highlight in terms of the popularity. We talk about we're in a tense political time in the United States, but when USMCA was going through about 5 years ago, every single member of the Texas congressional delegation from right to left voted for it. And the business community, the academic community, the civic community really united behind the agreement. And if you look at why, when we say it's the most successful trade deal ever, just 5 years ago, China was the top trading partner of the United States. Now it's Mexico's numero uno, and I'm sorry, Señor Duolingo is mi mejor amigo, pero I'll stick to English. But Mexico's number one, Canada's number two, and China is number three. And Texas as the top export state for 23 years in a row has benefited greatly. And as was pointed out by one of the deans, our trading relationship now with Mexico last year was about $281 billion. That's worth about 500,000 direct jobs in the state of Texas. And Canada, which is a very important part, obviously, of our trading relationships, our trilateral trading relationships, we're at a record high of about $75 billion and another 100,000 jobs. So for the state of Texas, the agreement has been extremely important. So the agreement, the USMCA, calls for a mid-year review in 2026. So the process has begun in all three countries to collect comments from interested parties on the agreement. And there was in November, even though the government was shut down, and it looks like the US government will reopen, so hopefully we'll all be able to safely return home for those who are going back to Texas. But what we did as a state chamber, we worked with a coalition we put together, we call Texas Leads Trade, and we submitted comments on November 3rd to the US TR. And the guts of the comments were that we need tariff-free trade in North America. We are in the highest tariff environment, basically, that the United States has been in about 100 years. There's not a single, I'm getting there, by the way, I'm not 100 yet, but there's not a single person here that was active in business or was really alive when we last experienced that level of high tariffs. So there is a lot of turbulence, and it's been said earlier today that certainty is very important. Well, the faster we could get to certainty in terms of our trading relationships with our top two trading partners, Mexico and Canada, the stronger the Texas and the U.S. economy will be. And I'll also just say, and in our remarks, we talked about a few different things. It helps on big challenges that the United States is facing. We want to lower inflation, and we know that if we have tariff-free trade in North America, all the products we make together, whether automobiles or consumer electronics, semiconductors, or you name it, space now is becoming an area where there's more joint collaboration, aerospace and defense, all of that's cheaper. And obviously on the food side as well, I'll admit, I'm self-interested because I start every day with avocados from Mexico, and I want them to be tariff-free. And we were on the right side of the tomato agreement because also most of the tomatoes I eat this time of year are from Mexico. And I'll just say, and I think it's important as we tell that story, tariff-free trade between Mexico and Canada and the United States also works to the benefit of other goals of this administration. And for example, make America healthy again. Are we healthier having access to fresh fruits and vegetables year round, or are we less healthy? We're obviously healthier. So we commented on those benefits. One additional area I just wanted to bring up, because I think this is very timely and important. And it also connects to some of the visa issues and the labor. So there's, to me, the bottom line is we want more good goods and more good people. Excuse me. We want more people and goods that are vetted and that contribute to our economy and the richness of our life. And where one of the top issues of our time right now is the AI race, is the race with China and the great power competition with China, particularly in manufacturing and AI. We simply need a strong Mexico and Canada to win. And my wife says, please don't talk in sports analogies, but I'm going to. How many championships would have the Bulls won with just Michael Jordan and not a Scottie Pippen? They would have 0. So we need this region to be very strong. And I would submit on the AI side, if we were talking about some positive revisions, might not be the right word, improvements to the USMCA, I would say that anything that helps the United States win the AI race against China should be embraced. And the administration launched its AI action plan in July in DC with the All In podcast guys. If you remember nothing else what I'm saying, I would urge everyone, listen to the All In podcast, because for anyone who's gone through school, they give you the answers to the homework assignment. It is the closest news source to what the administration is thinking. It's more important than any publication, Wall Street Journal, I read it, any Mexican publication, the All In podcast, David Sachs, take a look at all of those interviews. But the 3 pieces of that, one is accelerate and innovate. 2 is build the infrastructure, energy, and workforce. And that's a direct hit with what the SMU Mission Center is working on. And number 3 is that the world should embrace the US AI tech stack, which obviously benefits Mexico and Canada as well. And I really do respectfully believe that our friends in Mexico and Canada, and I know Mexico just released a AI plan. I have not had the chance to review it, but should get behind the goals of the administration's AI action plan. And I would just submit as a model. After this, I'm going to be heading to New York City for an event with the Dubai Chamber. The country in the world that's done the best job of really lining up behind the United States when it comes to AI is, in my opinion, is the UAE. And I do believe that Mexico and Canada would both benefit from going down that road. Those are my initial comments, and we've got a great moderator here, so I will take a seat.
Working? Okay, there we go. A great moderator. Okay. To follow a great speaker. Well, I hope you all have had a chance to visit and network a little bit, and that you're learning more about the importance of the Texas-Mexico relationship. But I'm going to exercise the prerogative. I think, Courtney, we have until the half hour for this, right? I'm going to exercise the prerogative just to ask a few leading questions, and then I'll turn it over to the audience. But Glenn started out by saying that he's a New Yorker.
Yes, originally, yes.
A New Yorker from the Bronx, I think, and has
Correct.
been transplanted to first to Arizona, then to Texas. So I thought I would start by asking him, I think the theme of my questions will be the shifting balance of power. You know, I teach international relations, among other things. And I think we've seen a shifting balance in the United States. You know, the center of economic gravity, and we know that politics often follows economics sometimes. So it's been shifting to North Texas, so, and to Texas in general. So as someone who's lived in Arizona, New York, I mean, maybe you could tell us a little bit more, and heading the Texas Chamber, tell us more about why things are moving to Texas.
Well, I do think trade has been a helpful part of this. With Laredo now as the top port, and I think Texas, the economy is so diversified. We're having a discussion. The leaders in Texas like to say that no one sector of the economy is more than 10%. Maybe energy is 20% if you stack everything up. But even if you think within energy, we're diversified. We're number one in oil. We're number one in natural gas. But most people don't know we're far and away number one in wind. We're number one in photovoltaic utility scale. We are quickly moving up the charts when it comes to batteries. Take a look at base power. Zach Dell. By the way, I'm not going to give much investment advice. Don't bet against the Dell. You'll make a lot of money. But his company just raised $1 billion. There's geothermal. So I would say it's the policy infrastructure of Texas. It's not really the Texas miracle, it's the Texas model. And what is that? It's low taxes, it's light regulations. You could build things quickly. That's part of the reason why renewables have exploded in the state of Texas. And even though California today has more people, Jim, than Texas, we have a lot more renewables because you can build stuff. I would also say, when you take a look at just purposeful diversification, and Willie, we talk about Dallas-Fort Worth, Y'all Street is on the rise. We have more financial jobs in the state of Texas today than in New York. And Dallas is the number 2 place for finance jobs outside of New York City. And that's going to flip, I think, pretty soon. But I just want to underscore this point. The importance of policies can't be underestimated. The day I was born, Texas had 60% of the population of New York. Today, New York has 19.8 million people, and Texas has 31 million, and we're growing. So, Jim, I'll just quickly say, if you take a look for those that want to invest, the jobs and headquarters are leaving places like California, Illinois, New York, and they're coming to Texas. But I do think our relationship with Mexico is a huge plus because it's an incredible market and also a gateway to a number of other important countries for our economy.
I want to follow up on that. It's something that came up during the break discussion, and somebody used the expression Dallas-Fort Worth is a crossroads. And it's a crossroads not just for Mexico, Latin America, but you know as well as I do the Asian presence, investments there. So I think, I know we didn't go, we dropped TPP. I don't know if we'll come back to that at some point, but Dallas-Fort Worth is not just an economy that faces south, it also faces to Asia. And, I think for everyone in this room, another reason to be in Texas and in Dallas-Fort Worth is because of the incredible business that we're doing with Asia.
Well, I would agree with that. And I'll say Taiwan specifically. The state of Texas has trade offices in Nuevo Leon, Mexico, a presence in Mexico City, but now also an office in Taipei, which if you take a look at where the most sophisticated semiconductor chips are produced, there's obviously of great importance in Taipei. And then we have great companies like Global Wafers now that are in the that are in the region. So you're 100% right. The Dallas-Fort Worth region is doing very well when it comes to Asian investments, South Korean, Vietnamese. It's pretty incredible.
There's a little company up the road from us called Texas Instruments. Some of you in the room may have heard
Great
about
company.
this company, and it was right on the front line, cutting edge, really, of the great technological revolution, inventing the integrated circuit, among other things. Just to reinforce one thing that Glenn said, Goldman Sachs is moving a lot of their operations from New York, California to Dallas. I think we have 5,000 employees arriving in Dallas from Goldman Sachs. So that's
well, and that's one where there probably could and should be more Mexican
Yes,
investment.
yes.
Is it Scotia Bank, a Canadian bank that just, Willie, am I right on that? It's good to have a power player from the region too on the business side to correct. But you take a look, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Fisher Investments, Charles Schwab. And for the love of God, the New York Stock Exchange has a major presence now. They moved from Chicago to Dallas, NASDAQ. And now the Texas Stock Exchange is set ready to open. And it's the most well-capitalized opening of a stock exchange in our country's history.
A final question from me, and we'll turn it over to the audience. But for quite a number of years now, I know this was a major project going on in the George W. Bush Presidential Center at SMU. My old friend Matt Rooney, you might have met Matt, but they were very focused on how Dallas-Fort Worth, referred to it earlier as the capital of NAFTA, but having a North American platform, from which to compete globally. And I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more, don't forget Canada, how important this North American platform is.
Well, it's really, in my opinion, the most important element for the Texas miracle, the Texas model to continue is integrated trade with Mexico and Canada. Nothing keeps me up more at night than there's no bigger risk to the Texas economy right now than, I'm just going to say it, I don't know how else to put it, for the USMCA to be blown up. That would be disastrous. That we couldn't, in my opinion, Texas seems to be able to get through every economic headwind. I don't believe we would be able to survive the destruction of the trade agreement. The continuation, building on it, we'll have more prosperity. And I mentioned AI, and I know there's a Tech to Monterey presence here as well. We should be expanding the NAFTA visas. One of the classifications is in engineers. It's like when I have these philosophical conversations with my daughter, how much chocolate is too much? The answer is no amount. And it's the same for engineers. And particularly as there's some new roadblocks with H-1B visas, we should be figuring out how to better use TN visas. But the number one, we spend a lot of time at the state capitol. The number one federal and international issue, the number two, number three, is the continuation and the building on the USMCA. That framework And one thing I should say, and I really think we have a great ambassador to the U.S. here in Ron Johnson. And he says, you know, our trading relationship now, Mexico and the United States, is about 750 billion. He wants to get to 1 trillion. So let's set goals like that when it comes to our bilateral relationship.
Well, yeah, I would just reinforce the fact that Texas, as we all know, is one of the most globalized economies in the world, among the most globalized states. So to reinforce what you just said, we have a lot to gain. We also have a lot to lose. So we need to join hands with Mexico and push to make these economies even more globalized to maximize the gains that we can get from trade and investment.
And I appreciate that Dr. Scheinbaum, President Scheinbaum, and her administration are working very well with the Trump administration. Secretary Rubio was down here a few weeks ago and was glowing in his praise of the security relationship with Mexico, and we just heard, you know, an hour or so ago of the importance for that economically. So I'm very optimistic that the right leaders are in place, actually both in Mexico and in Canada, to really make the region more prosperous and for us to all get a win-win-win. And of course, Texas will win more than any other state.
Okay, we set the stage. Let's take 2 or 3 quick questions. I don't know, we've got a few minutes left. David front has a question, and we'll take 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll let Glenn respond. David.
Thank you. Glenn, first of all, thank you for being here. Thanks for your partnership for all these years. You know, we've talked about, you know, benefits and what the USMCA and the NAFTA has contributed to the, you know, bilateral relationship. But I'm interested in, you know, knowing, you know, from your membership, you know, what is it that they would expect for USTR to achieve in this upcoming negotiation? I'm sure they want something. What is it that concerns them, and what is it that they're sort of pushing the Americans to try to get, you know, from Mexico in this round of negotiations?
Okay, that's an important question. Let's answer.
Yeah, I would say the rule of law issues are very important for Mexico. You know, I would respectfully submit, I think Texas has a great model. One of the reasons we're gaining all these headquarters and becoming the financial center of the United States is because we've established business courts selected by the governor with judges who have great technical expertise, and they're doing really well. And I would submit that Mexico could benefit from that model. I mean, you have a highly accomplished president. There aren't many world leaders who have won a Nobel Prize in energy. If Mexico were to look at making sure that its court system was friendly to commercial interests, I think that would be helpful. And you know, and I think the other issues is continued collaboration on migration and keeping deadly drugs out of the state and the country. And I just want to commend President Scheinbaum and her administration, because right now I do believe that the cooperation is at, if not a historical high, a high for a number of years.
Otras preguntas, por favor. We got this
Entiendo.
one over here, yeah. Quickly over here, yeah. Courtney, we can take a couple more questions, yeah.
Or if you have any insults, you could send them my way too.
Well, we got plenty of those for you, Glenn. Okay, so Texas, Mexico, really important. If you talk to our friend Jerry Schwebel, he's going to say that TMEC, USMCA, CUMSA all have a C in there. Canada, and Canada was one of the more difficult partners to negotiate the original NAFTA and USMCA agreement, at least according to Jerry and from other people I know. We've kind of touched on Canada here. Let's look into a crystal ball, your crystal ball, because you're very good at that. Where does Canada fit into all this here? And with an administration that keeps on talking about, you know, maybe not having USMCA and looking at 2 bilateral agreements, and a Department of Commerce that wants a USMCA, what does September next year look like?
I believe at the end of the day, the 3 countries will continue to move forward with the trade agreement. I do think, you know, I think the World Cup is going to help. President Trump really cares about it, and it is a joint collaboration. The timing is incredibly good. You have the USMCA review. You also have the 250th birthday of the United States. and President Trump loves sporting events. So I think it's going to continue. I should have said, a few other issues. I think that it's important, whether it's Canada or Mexico, to respect what's going on technologically in the U.S. with some of the tech companies. So, say when Canada was looking at digital taxes and things like that, or Europe looks to overregulate AI, that's an issue. So I think harmonization, I should say, I'll put it in a positive. The more tariffs and policies could be harmonized, and again, kudos to Mexico for raising tariffs on on China, to draw closer to the United States. I think the more we're working as an integrated unit, the better off we'll be. But I'm very optimistic that the trading deal is going to continue. And I also think the administration, which is loaded with very, very strong people in finance, understand that the inflationary impact of blowing up supply chains and raising costs of goods like avocados or whatnot will be harmful to the American people.
Alfredo.
Okay, so
To my tummy.
I go back maybe 15 years back. I've been making this comment. United States being the most powerful country in the world, it needs to really put more effort on the relation of this continent, not just Canada, not just Mexico, the rest of Latin America, because this is the land that we share. This is our continent, and sometimes I feel like we don't do enough. We get to worry in Afghanistan, Pakistan, everywhere in the world, except this area that doesn't really give United States so much of a headache, and so what do you think?
Well, this is dangerous to be with an actual expert in international affairs. But the two areas that I really like where the Trump administration is going is bringing back the Monroe Doctrine. They're calling it the Don Road Doctrine. I don't think countries like Venezuela should be able to get away with what they've been getting away with. It's incredibly destabilizing. It helps Mexico as well if we have better partners in other parts of the world. The other areas, and I do believe President Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, what's going on in the Middle East is going to be very positive. The Abraham Accords, plus you just had Kazakhstan. That would be an area where I think collectively North America could really benefit from stronger relationships with countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia that are going to be investing trillions into North America. And real quick, I'll say, this is a bipartisan desire on the part of Congress, is to reindustrialize the United States of America, both for defense and economic purposes. And this is, again, another opportunity for us to work with Mexico and Canada to achieve that important goal.
I'm almost old enough to remember the Alliance for Peace and Prosperity, just to take us back a little bit further in time. Courtney, are we pretty much out of time? Okay, so we probably better wrap it up, but I have to say, for a guy from the Bronx, you really know your stuff, and we thank you very much for your comments. And some of you in here have heard that expression, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as quick as I could. So I think we can say that Glenn, like me, for that matter, we're sort of honorary Texans, naturalized Texans, and Texas is open for business. So thank you, Glenn. Thank you all. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you.